Hi guys, happy Sunday. It is January 20 something? Maybe 27th, I think. I don't know. Okay, so it is we're almost to the end of January and I'm super excited. January just kind of flew right on by and I'm hoping that it just, takes February with it. At least that's my hope. So I am in southeastern Michigan and it is currently freezing outside. It's rainy and dreary. And you know what? It's kind of a bummer because yesterday our weather was really nice. It was one of those days, where you wake up and everything feels amazing. And then today I woke up and it was like the exact opposite. So you're gonna have to bear with me if I sound a little off. It's just how it is. The weather is kind of gross outside. So this is a knitting podcast and my name is Mandy and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram and everywhere else as Mandy Von Knits. I have been knitting for around 13 years. No, I have been crocheting for around 13 years and I have been knitting for around 9. And I love to make garments and I love to knit for my family. And this year I have been trying to focus on leveling up my knitting and especially my color work, and hopefully later on in the year I'm going to be trying brioche because that is another goal that I have. But for right now I am concentrating mainly on color work. So my podcast is I guess you would call it more of like a knitting vlog, because I'm still of the old school where, podcast is audio, but anyways, it's a silly thing. So my knitting vlog is mainly about what I've worked on throughout the week, my finished items, my works in progress, and basically the plans that I have for next week. So the first thing I want to mention is that I am wearing my Ripple Lace cardigan. This pattern is from Joji Locatelli and I finished it in around between September and November of last year. I can't really remember the order that I did them, but because Joji Locatelli does her basically giant knit along with her patterns, I worked on a bunch of her patterns throughout September to November. So it was somewhere around there in 2023. And I love this color, so I decided to wear it even though it's short sleeved and I'm kind of cold. So I may regret that, but I guess we'll see. So like I said, this week I have been working on all sorts of color work and I have a sweater for my daughter in progress and I will show you that shortly, but I got on a hat kick and I had mentioned last week I wanted to make the basic Norwegian star hat. I believe it was called. I'll put the name down below. And I worked on that and I finished that. So this hat is for my son. Now, I'm really happy with the way that the color work came out, but I'm going to tell you something. I had picked this hat because I wanted to use more than 2 colors. And then I started looking at the colors that I picked. I had dark blue, black, and the light blue. And the dark blue and the black were basically like blending into each other to the point where you couldn't even tell that there was color work. So I ended up having to scrap that. And I guess it turned out okay because the chart for this hat makes a very long hat. And the hat is very big to begin with. Now, you cast on, I believe, 112 stitches. And that's with worsted weight. And that's a pretty big hat with a size 6 needle for me. So I went down, the pattern repeat, I believe, is 16 stitches. And I ended up with 96 or 94, one of them. And it's still kind of a big hat. The The size 6 needle made a very nice fabric. It's not too like rigid. It's very flowy and drapey, and I kind of like the way that the Colorwork came out using that. But like I said, it's a pretty big hat. So this hat will end up going to my son, and it will be slouchy. But whenever I showed him this hat as I was working on it, he goes, "You've made me that before." And I'm like, yeah, I knit him this, or at least it had this part. I knit him a hat that had this chart when he was very small. So he was excited to see that. Now, the original hat has basically three, there's a motif here, and there's a motif up here. I left out the one up top because it was just gonna be too big. Now, this hat is still kind of damp because I had wanted to black them all before I showed them. So keep that in mind as you're looking at it. But I really do like it. Now that I'm looking at it, it does seem like the Colorwork is a little loose. So I think I would definitely go down probably 2 needles. So I knit this on a 6. I'd probably use a 5 if I did this again. And I might even, well, no, I'd still keep it on a 96 stitch count. The pattern is very easy to manipulate the stitch count. She gives you exactly what the repeat is. It's a chart, and the pattern is also free. So that was very nice. I did enjoy knitting it, and I really do like the middle star motif. It's very pretty. So after I knit that, and I was kind of bummed that I couldn't use 3 colors like what my original plan, I started looking on Ravelry, and I found Tin Can Knits, and they have come out with a sweater pattern, and it's called Strange Brew, where you can basically build your own Colorwork sweater, and I really like that idea. What I was not aware of was that they had basically the same thing, but for hats, and the pattern is free. So I will put the pattern name down below. I believe it's Anthology for some reason, but I could be way off because I know that there's the Anthology Throw, but I'm almost positive that this pattern is called Anthology. So this is the second Colorwork hat that I made, and I'm much more happy with this one. This one has 96 stitches, but this is knit on a size 5. Now, this is also super drapey and comfortable and not, rigid like Colorwork could be if it was too tight. I am much happier with this hat. I looked at some samples that Tin Can knit up with their pattern, and I basically took inspiration from one of them. I believe the original one was like dark red and then like a lighter red up here. So I just fit the colors that I had and knit my son this. I really do like this hat. I really think that I could probably make my daughter something similar, but I don't know. She hasn't asked for a hat. Right now she's excited about the sweater that I'm making her. I think that it came out well, and this one is also wet, so I guess that's the problem with blocking in Michigan right now is that, it's gonna take forever to dry. So the Colorwork motif is just a simple motif, but I really like it. I think that it's a cute hat. And the best part about the Tin Can Knits pattern is that, you can change out the motifs. They give you a bunch of motifs with stitch counts that will work, and I love it. I think that it's great. I'm definitely going to keep this pattern and probably make a couple of more just with different motifs and change it up and see what I can come up with. I have a bunch of different scraps of all, I mean, the pattern will let you use all of the different fingering weights as well. So, or all of the different yarn weights as well. And I have a ton of fingering weights, which was where my head was going, which is why I misspoke there. But it will definitely be fun to see what I can come up with there. Now, I know that I wasn't supposed to show you this because it's a muscle burrow and it's going to be a long-term knit, but I wanted to bring it back out because I've been working on it and I want to show what the yarn is doing and kind of change my plan that I had for the hat. So, okay, take a look at this. I love the way that this is working up. Do you see how it's like doing these thick stripes? I think that that looks so cool. So last week I had said that I was going to alternate basically helical knit from the inside and the outside and avoid pulling for one side, and then for the other side just let it do whatever it wants to do. Now that was before it started doing this when I was helical knitting, and now I'm in love with it. I think that that looks so neat. I am going to do that for the entire hat. Just keep knitting from the inside and the outside. And now I'm excited to see what the other colorway that I have is going to do. Because I think that that looks like it's an on-purpose thing, right? I would have never thought that it would do that, but I really like it. And I haven't showed it to my son yet, but I know he's going to love it too. I think that the muscle burrow, this pattern, in case you haven't, you aren't familiar with it, this pattern is by Isolde Teague, and it's basically a recipe to allow you to take pretty much any yarn that you have and turn it into a double thick hat. So you start off knitting a hat. Basically, you start from the crown, you go all the way down, and then you keep working until you're almost out of yarn. For me, for fingering weight, it's generally around 10, between like 7 to 10 grams. I'll stop and start doing the decreases on the other side. So eventually I will end up with a closed tube that has both ends that look like this. And then when I'm done, I just shove one side of the tube into the other, and it's a double layered hat. And it doesn't have any ribbing, of course, unless you decide to knit I've seen people knit the middle of the muscle burrow to have ribbing. So when you push it in, there's ribbing there. But I really like the way that the all stockinette hats look. And I think that's why I tend to gravitate towards the muscle burrow so much. It's all stockinette, and I really do love how all stockinette hats look. So it's almost like if I was going to do ribbing, I'd just make a normal hat, but then it wouldn't be double thick, which wouldn't work well for winters in Michigan because it's been super cold here. I have been wearing my muscle burrow anytime I go outside. I have a red one that is knit with Blackbird Sycamore yarn and Claric, and I held mohair and kid silk in Claric together, and it's super warm and it's super squishy, and I'm wearing it everywhere because it's also super light. But this one is for my son, and he picked out the color. The color is called Red Room. Uh-oh. And I have another skein that I want to use called Starry Night, which is just like the Van Gogh painting. So I'm excited to do that. My goal this year is to keep a muscle burrow on the needles no matter what. To me, it's like, I want to treat it like some people treat sock knitting. They'll always have a sock on the go, and I always want to have a muscle burrow on the go. Socks for me aren't a great thing just because if you're new to my channel, hi, welcome. I know it's late, I'm sorry. I should have said welcome at the beginning, but I am incompletely paralyzed, so socks don't really go well for me. I am worried that I will not be able to knit them tight enough and I will end up having an issue with like not being able to feel my feet and somehow them getting stuck, or it's just a thing. If you've ever dealt with anybody who's had neuropathy, you kind of know what I'm talking about. For the most part, my socks are very boring compression socks, but I do get like the happy, they're not boring. They have like hearts and patterns and stuff on them, but that's pretty much where I'm stuck with, unfortunately. I would love to wear hand knit socks, but the muscle burrow is going to be my sock knitting from now on. Now, the thing that I've been, well, I can't even say that. So I have been working on this sweater for my daughter, and I really love how it's turning out, and I have no yarn woven in yet, so you're definitely going to see it as an in-progress thing. But this is the Bloomsbury by Svetlana Volkova, I believe. I'm going to put all the pattern names down below so that you'll have them. But I love the way that this yoke is on the sweater. It is so pretty. I am knitting a size 8. This is the Bloomsbury Kids pattern, and I have this in adult sizing as well. So if she wants it when she gets older, I can make her one. I have knit both the kids and the adult pattern. I made one for me and one for her a long time ago. I think like 2 to 3 years ago. But I have almost completed the second sleeve. I have one more repeat of the lace and then the ribbing. I am doing 9 rows for the ribbing. I did it on the collar, and then I will do it on the cuffs and the bottom so that they all match. The ribbing that I am using is twisted rib, because that's what I always use. I love the way that it looks. I think that I prefer it better. I don't like to swap needles when I'm knitting ribbing, and I find that if I knit twisted, it's tighter than if I would knit normal. So basically it's my way of getting out of swapping needles. But on the other hand, even if I did have to swap needles, I'd still knit the twisted ribbing just because I think that it looks neater. Now the increases for the body took basically a night. So from around 7 till 10, I worked on the increases, and then the next day I was able to finish them. Everything is going pretty fast because the yarn is a worsted weight. It is Pearly Haze from Hobie. It's a commercial weight yarn. It comes in 50-gram put-ups. And let me see if I have one that's easily accessible. Yes, I do. It is 73% viscose and 27% wool. And it is so pretty, and the yarn is a tube. Now, the yarn that I am using for her sweater, I have made, this is basically leftovers of what I had when I made myself a cardigan. It just so happened to be a very happy accident, I guess, except unless you count my pocketbook, that I have a horrible habit of completely overestimating the amount of yarn I need for a sweater for myself. Now, this is especially true if I'm knitting in something that's not fingering weight. I've pretty much got fingering weight down pat for how much I need for myself, but for worsted and DK, I am awful at it. So anyways, short story shorter. Does that make sense? Long story shorter, I had around 700 yards left, and I figured I was going to make her this sweater with it. She wears a uniform to school, and she's allowed to wear solid color sweaters over her uniform, and I thought that this would be very pretty for that. Now, there is the motif on the back. As you can see, I kind of abandoned the body right after I split for sleeves and then picked the sleeves up and knit them. The reason that I do that is because it's very fiddly for me to knit the sleeves after I'm done with the body. I love this detail. Like, I love how this looks. I think that it is just the prettiest sweater. It's just incredible to me. The pattern is very well written, and the way that this builds is just great. It's just awesome. Like, I 100% recommend this sweater to anybody who wants to make a sweater and might not feel confident about making a lace sweater. Pick this one, definitely. This lace pattern is so simple. I'm almost to the point where I have it memorized, and it's super simple, and I'm telling you, a beginner can do this, and it is so impressive, right? I mean, just the way that the design looks, it looks way more complicated than it is. And to me, a knit or crochet anything that looks more complicated than it is 100% A+. I have been having a lot of fun knitting this, and I know that my daughter is super excited to wear it. I had her try it on. It fits her exactly the way that it's supposed to. When you look in the pattern photos, the sweaters are basically form-fitting, and that's what it turns out to be. You could knit bigger sizes, obviously, to get more ease, but I didn't bother with that because she's a kid and she doesn't want ease like I do. I love ease in my sweaters. My plan for next week is to get this sweater done because, like I said, I'm almost done with the sleeve, and I just need to pick up and knit the body down. So I'm hoping that I can get this pretty much completed in the next couple of days. And if you've been watching for a little bit, you know that I am planning on knitting my mother an Irish gold from Joji Locatelli. It is a cardigan, and I will put the picture up here, but it is a cardigan, and it's fairly oversized, and my mother wears a bigger size than I do, and I'm super excited to make that for her. I have some dark gray to black yarn from Blackbird Sycamore Yarns. It's charcoal, or no, what is it? It's number 1 black. Why did I say, well, I said charcoal because the color looks really close to like a charcoaly black. It's very pretty. It's one of my favorite tonal colors that exist anywhere. I love matching it with different colors, and I used it as the base for my Advent cardigan that I just recently completed a couple of videos back. So my plan is that I am hoping I can cast that Irish gold cardigan on and just get started on it, because I know that getting started is going to be the hardest part. It is knit and fingering weight. So it's my favorite yarn weight, but obviously it's a lot more time involved than, say, this, which is, you know, a size 8 on worsted weight yarn. So it will be a labor of love, but I'm super excited to do that for her. I think that she will definitely appreciate it, and she's definitely knit worthy. From a standpoint of color work, I will probably work some more on a color work hat or two. I have been talking for like the last 3 or 4 months about knitting an odd stripes hat for myself, and that might happen or it might not, because I never really plan the hat I'm casting on until I'm like sitting down and ready to cast it on. Those are my main goals, for the next week, just to work on color work and work some more on the muscle burrow. I have a bunch of muscle burrow hats in my head that I want to knit, so hopefully over the next year I can get some of those done. That's pretty much it for knitting this week. I have no crochet, which is different from the last couple of weeks, right? That's weird, but I haven't been feeling crochet lately, so I'm letting myself, take a step back and just work on what I feel like. And this week, interestingly enough, it's been hats. Like I said, I really like the way that this came out. I'm super excited to look at their motifs and just sit down and chart a hat that I think would be fun. This is 3 colors. That's probably what I'm going to stick with. I really like the color work that's monochrome, or, I like the color work that's very, very, I don't want to say complicated. I really like the complicated color work, but complicated as in chart, as opposed to color changes. So I really like just the 2 color, 3 color at most color work, and then I think that it lets the chart shine. I've seen some beautiful color work sweaters that are just 2 colors and they look amazing. I believe my goal is to make an all-over colorwork sweater with 2 colors, and I want the colors to be very stark contrast, like black and white, or like black and another white color, or like white and a really dark color, maybe white and red. I would love to do a white and red colorwork sweater, but I'm so scared that it will bleed. So I'll have to think about it. Definitely would love to do white and red. I love those 2 colors, and I think that it would be such a pretty like Christmas sweater, but I will definitely have to kind of garner some courage before I go through that. Anyways, that's pretty much all the knitting I have for this week. My life has been very boring. I've been studying for my class on AWS, trying to become AWS certified for their solutions architect associate, and it's going to be a very long haul. I have read a couple of books. I read one book from Karen Slaughter called Pretty Little Girls, and I swear every time I read one of the books from Karen Slaughter, I just start thinking about like, oh my gosh, our world, and like start bemoaning everything, because I swear I don't recommend Pretty Little Girls unless you are not triggered easily by pretty much anything, because there's trigger warnings abound for that book. It was very bittersweet, and it was it's a great book. The books are good. Otherwise, I wouldn't read them, but like it's very heavy and very just heavy, very dramatic and very heavy, and it makes you start to think blah. So if you aren't into like dramatic books, the book was about basically women being kidnapped and terrible, awful things happening to them, and it turns out to be this whole huge global thing, and The other book that I've kind of been reading is Dreamcatcher from Stephen King. I have not finished that yet. I'm still kind of in a holding pattern on that. Like I said, AWS certification has been taking up most of my time and will probably continue to take up most of my time at least until, I'm going to say, June. I don't want to rush into taking the certification. I have a class, and it's a very good class, and I will probably go through it, no joke, 3 or 4 times. And not because I want to pass the certification, because I really want to understand the information and be comfortable in the environment. So it's going to be for the long haul. For everything else, my kiddos have had, extracurricular activities, and we've been going back and forth. We are looking forward very much to going to basically a mini staycation. We're just going to take the kids to an indoor water park, and I'll visit the yarn store, but that won't be until almost the end of February. I am hoping February kind of just flies by and it's all, it just goes away, and March is here, and sure, March is rainy, but maybe it'll fly by too, and pretty soon it'll be June and it can just stay there. In case you haven't noticed, I am not a fan of the cold. I am not a fan of snow, and I basically enjoy spring and summer and, fall until it gets cold. In Michigan, we have very cold winters, and it's just not pleasant, especially if you have any type of arthritis or anything like that. That is pretty much all I have for this time. Like I said, I've been spending a lot of time working on certification stuff, so there's not much going on in life except waiting for the winter to pass. Oh, yeah, there is one thing. I didn't even think about mentioning this. So on Tuesday, we are driving out to Holly, Michigan, and that's an hour or so away from us, and we are going to a physical therapist's office to try out a mobility device. And the hope is that I will be able to walk with this mobility device. It is kind of a walker, kind of a gait harness system, and we're just going to see if I can actually use it. The insurance company might pay for a very large portion of it if my doctor writes a letter of medical necessity. So I am keeping my fingers crossed, but obviously the first step in the very long process of, dealing with insurances and everything is basically making sure that I can actually utilize it. I'm super excited because if I can, I will be able to, walk around at least the kitchen and the living room of the house and kind of be a little bit more mobile. I don't think people realize that it's very hard to build up strength if you're not actively using your muscles. So if I were to be able to use this gait harness system, I would be able to stand a lot more than I am now. So if I'm able to stand, then my muscles are able to build up, and it will make, muscles are important to have. So that's pretty much the main highlight of my week next week, just going there and checking that out. So I'm pretty excited about it. Plus, an hour of car knitting is always good, right? I'm going to be taking this just because it's car knitting, and this is like the perfect car knitting pattern. My son has been looking forward to this, but obviously he's not lacking hats. I'm going to ask him if he can ask his school principal because his principal is also his history teacher, if he can ask his principal if they have any use for any hats, because I definitely have hats that I could donate if they do. Anyways, I am glad that you guys decided to hang out with me for 30 or so minutes. I am super happy that you stuck around, and I hope that you got some great knitting or crochet or craft of your choice in. I am looking forward to seeing you next week, and I hope that you have a great week. Thank you. Bye.